This is your test 4 review. We're learning about the range of the function. So range is the values of y, and we're going to be looking at the y-axis then, and where the very bottom of this line that is drawn right here begins and ends, looking at the y-axis. And so we're going to start down here at the bottom of that line, and this is where it starts at with our least value of y, and so that would be -4, and all of the numbers that are between are our y values, and the top of that graph is up here where you have 0 at the bottom and 5 up at the top. So it ranges from 0 on the y-axis to 5. Next question we are given is an equation that we have to graph. So this equation has to be in slope-intercept form. So we need to take the equation -3x minus y equals 3. We're going to get it in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, where y is by itself. So anything attached to y on this side needs to go away. So we are going to first get rid of the -3x by putting +3x on the left and +3x on the right. That will leave us with -y on the left and 3x plus 3 on the right. Do not combine those two terms right here because they are not like terms. Next, we have the negative sign on the y, so we need to change y to positive. We're taking the opposite sign of y on the left, so we're taking the opposite sign of 3x and 3 on the right. Now we have our equation, and we can look at it and tell two things. One, the slope is -3. And so we have a -3 for our slope. When we graph it, we will write it as -3 over 1 because we are going to have to go down 3 and right 1. But for now, the answer is -3 for slope. And right here, the y-intercept is -3. So we write that as a point with a x-coordinate of 0 and a y-coordinate of -3 because it's crossing the y-axis at -3. The other two parts of our questions are asking for x-intercept and slope. We can find those by looking at our calculator. So we will enter our equation into our calculator. But first we're going to graph the equation because we know enough to do that. So we know already that we have a point that we can start with, which is 0, -3. And then we know that our slope is -3 over 1. And if I look at this graph, I cannot go down 3 on this graph. So I'm going to move my negative sign to the bottom. And so it can be written as 3 over -1. That's okay. That means you're going up 3, and instead of going to the right, you're going left. Okay, left 1. It just changes the directions on both the top and bottom. And so we can go up 3 and go left 1, and we still have the correct point. So up 3 is +3 over -1 again, and then we can plot our line through these. And so the line through these would look like this. A little bit straighter, so we'll adjust that. And so here is our line through that. It looks like it goes through at -1 on the x-axis. This one is our y-intercept of 0, -3 for the y-intercept. And it looks like it goes through the x-axis at -1, 0, but we're going to double check that with our calculator by putting the equation in. So in our calculator, we will push y equals, and we're going to put our equation -3x minus 3 in the calculator. And second graph. Okay, I'm believing that -1, 0 right here is our x-intercept. So I'm going to look down at that in my calculator, and sure enough, -1, 0 is our x-intercept. So I'm going to put that right here, -1, 0. Okay, and then I'm going to look at that. I'm going to look at that table again. When it asked me for 0 right here, I noticed that my cursor right now is on 0 for the y value. That's what it's talking about. Where is y 0? Boom. On the left, there's a -1. Y is 0 when you're crossing x at -1. So -1 is where you're crossing the x-axis. It will make your y 0. Next equation, identify the following characteristics from the graph. We need the 0 and the y-intercept. Well, the y-intercept is easy because it's right here. Y-intercept. And that point is our point 0, 2. And so we can put that one there. And remember, the 0 of this is going to be where it crosses the x-axis. And so right here is our 0. Our 0 is -4. Next question, simplify the following expression. So when we have parentheses here, it means to multiply. So we are going to multiply 8 and 2 to get 16x. We are multiplying 8 times 3 to get 24. And then we will copy our rest of our equation. Okay, and then we'll work that out in our next step. We have 16x plus 24. We're multiplying negative by positive, so this answer is going to be negative. You can choose to use your calculator if you would like. Make sure that when you do this in your calculator, that you have pushed parentheses around your 1 divided by 4, and then you multiply it by 4 on your calculator. It will give you a 1, okay? And so it is 1, and we can also multiply the 1 and 4 here and get 4 over 4, and that is also 1. So either way. And the next one, we have 1/4 times 12, and it is a negative times a positive again. So make sure you write that as a negative sign instead of a positive sign, and we multiply 1/4 by 12. So again, we can use our calculator on that. If you would like to do that, that's fine. And you would, again, push 1/4 with parentheses around it. And then multiply that by 12. If it turns out a whole number, it's nice and pretty. If it doesn't, if it turns out a decimal, you might want to just calculate it on paper. But this does turn out to be a 3. So we realize that's just 12 divided by 4. 12 divided by 4. So we have a 3 for that one. Now we're going to look at our like terms. We have 16x minus 1x, so that is 15x. And then 24 and -3 do not have a variable, so they are like terms, and we are subtracting them. 24 minus 3 is 21. So this is our simplified term for our long string of numbers that we had in the beginning. Next question, what equation could be used to model the sequence? So this is a sequence. That means that we're starting out with numbering our terms. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. So we will put 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. And those terms of that sequence are 0.5, -2, -4.5, and -7. And we can put this in a calculator to find the equation. So we're going to pull the calculator up again, and we're going to type into the calculator stat, edit, and we already have the numbers 1 through 4. On this side, we need to put our sequence 0.5, -2, -4.5, and -7. Okay, and then we push stat and we move to the right to calculate and we push 5. Then enter and we get an equation. Our equation that we have needs to be written on your paper. So we have the equation y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. And in that equation, a is 0, so we replace a with 0. B is -2.5, so we replace it with -2.5. And C is 3, so we replace it with 3. Making sure I have those right values there. Yes. Okay, so that means that we have y is equal to, this goes away, and our equation is -2.5x plus 3. And that's the equation for that sequence. Y equals -2.5x plus 3. Next is another sequence problem. It says something about a pattern here, and they want an equation or expression that can be used to determine the number of people. So the number of people is the sequence that we have in our pattern, and so we are going to label this as a table as well with our terms in our numbers. So we have our terms would be our groups. And so in group 1, we're going to count all of the people we have in that group. So we have 2, 4, 5, 6 people in that group. And in our next group, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10 people in that group. In the second group. And in our third group, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14 people in our third group. And in our fourth group at the bottom, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17, 18 people in that last group. Okay, so we can pull up our calculator like we did on our last sequence and do our stat edit for this equation. And we can input our values. We have 1 through 4 already on the left side, so we're just changing the sequence on the right. Our sequence is 6, 10, 14, and 18. And then we push our stat button. our calculate and 5 again, and we have an equation we are going to copy down at the top of our calculator. It says y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c, and we can replace a with the value we see on our calculator of 0, and b with the value for that we see in our calculator of negative 2.5. I think that's right. We'll check that again because that seems like we had that in our last one. Now we don't want to work. So we're going to quit that and go back to our stat. Edit. And our values are correct. So let's go back to stat, calculate, and scroll down. Maybe that will help to 5 and enter. And then enter again. There we go. Okay. So our B is replaced with a 4 and our C is replaced with a 2. And so our equation is y equals 4x plus 2. And I knew that I didn't have the right thing when I looked at the difference between 6 and 10 because the difference is 4, so I should have had a 4 there. And that's what caught my eye. So we have y equals 4x plus 2 is the equation for this pattern. Next equation, suppose y varies directly with x, so we have a direct variation equation of y equals kx. And when x is 12, so I have an x in my equation, I'm going to highlight that x and replace it with that value. And so I have a 12 there. And then I read on and see that y is also 26, and so I'm going to replace the y that I have with 26. And I do not have anything with k, so there's no k up there. So I need to take my equation and solve for the k in this because they're asking me to find out what y is when x is 15. So I first have to solve this equation of information I know. So divide by 12 on both sides to get rid of 12. And you have k is equal to 26 over 12. We can simplify that, but we cannot divide it. So we're going to go to our side work over here, and we are going to take our 26 and our 12. We're going to divide them both by 2 to make it smaller and easier to work with. 13 over 6 is what k is equal to. Then we're going to start a new column over here and write our equation again, y equals kx, because what we did over here is we said when x is 12, we know that y is 26, but what we are looking for is we're looking for when x is 15. So what we're looking for over here is when x is equal to 15. So that's not going to help us. We're just going to have to plug in our answer from here. So we have y is equal to 13 over 6, and we have now changed our value of x to 15, and so we're going to use 15 in our equation where our x is. X is 15 now. And so we are multiplying. Y is equal to 13 over 6, and 15 is a whole number, so we will make that 15 over 1 and multiply the numerators first to get 195, and our denominators to get 6. And so we are going to take our calculator and we're going to divide 195 by 6. We have the answer of y is equal to 30 32.5. When you grid this, make sure you have 32 in front of the decimal and 5 on the right of the decimal. If the decimal is not in the correct space between the 2 and the 5, the answer is wrong. Next question. Y varies directly with x, so again we have y is equal to kx. That's the first thing I think of when I think of varies directly. And I'm replacing values again. So what am I replacing? What information do I have? It says y is 62. So I'm going to put 62 where y is. And then I also know that x is 14. So I'm going to put my k in my equation and replace the x with 14. And I need to know what equation represents the situation. So I need to have this kind of like in a slope-intercept form, but this is direct variation. So I need to know what the k is here. And that's the only thing I need in order to write an equation. So I'm solving for k right now. Divide by 14 to solve for k on both sides. So you have 62 divided by 14. And 62 and 14 I don't believe go into each other very evenly. We will check that first though. So 62 divided by 14. If it does not divide into a whole number, we may have to simplify. So since this number goes on forever, it looks like we're going to simplify the fraction. So we have 62 and 14. We divide by 2 on top to get 31. And we divide by 2 on bottom to get 7. So the answer is k equals 31 over 7. And we plug it into the equation. So when you plug it in, you make an equation. Next question. Calculate the slope for the table shown below. Well, slope is m is equal to y2 minus y1. We're subtracting y values on top, x values on bottom, and the table already has this set up, y right here. So we can put a minus sign between them and simply write 13 minus 10. And then we can go to the left side where our values of x are. We can put a minus sign between those. And we can write negative 8 minus negative 4. Let's make sure we get rid of our double negatives here. So on the top, we're okay. 13 minus 10, no double negatives in the middle, but on the bottom, it should be negative 8 plus 4. Okay, and then we will solve both numerator and denominator. On the top, we have 3. On the bottom, we have negative 4. So slope is negative 3/4. Next equation, the graph of y equal x is given the transformation. Y equals f of x plus 1. So first we look in here at what we're doing to x. Normally, if it says plus, we would be going to the right because the positives are on the right of the x-axis. However, x always does things in the opposite way. So this means that we're going to the left. Okay, and that is left 1 space. On the outside, we are working with the y values, and so this is telling what it's doing to the y values, and y values are a vertical axis, so we're either going up or we're going down. And so I look at this, and y does exactly what it says it's supposed to do, so this means it's going down. So we're going to look at our options here. Shift 1 up. No, it is not 1 up. It was 1 left. That part is wrong, and this part is wrong. It is not doing those things. Shift 1 to the left. Yes, it is shifting 1 to the left, but it's not going 4 to the right, so that part is wrong. Shift 1 to the left and 4 down is the correct answer, C. And last problem of our review is a transformation. So we start with a parent function here, and we have to know what those points are. So I'm going to put the points that where the horizontal and vertical lines intersect. Those are my 5 points that go in my table for the parent function. So the parent function begins with -2, -2, -1, -1, 0, 0, 1, 1, and 2, 2. These are the parent functions. On the transformation, I am doing something to the values of x. And so I know this means that I have to do the opposite. And the opposite means that I have to multiply x by 3 instead of using 1/3, which is dividing x by 3. So I'm going to leave a little room. I'm going to do my 1/3 x transformation right here. And the y values do not change. And so over here I have 1/3 x. That means that I have 3 times my values of x, which are -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. So I will be multiplying all of those values by 3. 3 times -1, 3 times 0, 3 times 1, and 3 times 2. And so, and I don't do anything to my y values. So when I do my table over here for my values of x and y, I have transformed those values of x right here, and I'm going to place it in my table. 3 times -2 is -6, 3 times -1 is -3, 3 times 0, 3 times 1, and 3 times 2. The values of y do not change. So I'm going to highlight what I had for my value of y over in my parent function, and I'm going to copy that in my transformation because they do not change. So I have -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. And now I can graph these points that I have in my table. The first one is -6, -2. And I will be out here and down 2 somewhere. And then my second one sorry, back that up. Something happened to my graphs. There we go. Okay, so the second one is the point -3, -1. So I go left 3 and down 1. The third one 0, 0. The fourth one 3, 1. And then the last one is 6, 2. And that one is off the graph somewhere over here. So my graph is going to go through these points. This happens to stretch across the graph only because that's where the points are. We don't go beyond the points. So this is what the graph looks like. And that is the end of your review. So good luck on your test tomorrow and do your best.